Welcome to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to UPLEVEL. I'm Dr. Jenna, and today we're going to ask the question, are you solving the right problem? Because lots of smart women get stuck chasing the wrong answers. And I see this repeatedly. Most of the women that I've worked with or that come to me have spent years trying to solve their fatigue, their weight gain or their weight loss resistance, their bloating, their brain fog, hormone symptoms, digestive issues. And often they're working incredibly hard. They're reading. They're researching, testing, supplementing, changing diets, looking at their genetic profile, and yet they're still stuck. And one of the biggest reasons is not lack of effort. We like to talk about that a lot on social media. Just put more effort in. And that's not usually the issue. It's often that they're trying to solve the wrong problem. The problem isn't always what we think it is. So I want to break this down. Why do smart people get stuck? I would say intelligent people are actually more vulnerable to this. More information doesn't always create clarity. So a lot of you are researching and trying all these things and trying to dig deep, but it's not bringing clarity. And often it's bringing more chaos and more overwhelm. And our health culture right now rewards complexity, right? I talked all about the personalization of health and how out of hand that can actually get. Because these novel explanations feel exciting. I've also noticed that there's a lot of people online that they just want to hone in on one thing. It's just this issue and everything, everything is parasites. Everything is your gut. Everything is just your hormones, but we're nuanced beings, right? But those novel explanations can feel really exciting and we can go chasing those. And the simple explanations, maybe you need to sleep more, manage your stress, like that feels boring. So again, examples of this. Hormones become the explanation for everything. Gut health becomes the explanation for everything. And believe me, I'm all about our hormones and gut. Cortisol becomes the explanation for everything, or the scapegoat, I would even say. Inflammation becomes the explanation for everything. All of these things are tied together. Most of the people I see, their hormones are not working in a way that's beneficial to them or not at the levels that they would feel better. Their gut health is not dialed in. Their cortisol might be off. And most people I see do have inflammation. Not everybody, but a lot of people. But as I've talked about over and over, real life is more nuanced than these blanket statements of just blaming one thing. So the first explanation that sounds sophisticated isn't always the most likely explanation. So let's talk about how we tend to chase the most interesting explanation, not the most probable one. Okay, it's interesting. Let me chase that. Not the most likely. So fatigue, for example. Let's talk about what people chase first. All about the adrenals. It's only my adrenals. I have adrenal dysfunction or, adrenal fatigue, which would actually mean your adrenals have gone kaput, which hopefully for most of you is not actually the case. Mold, which is real. I've worked with a lot of people who've been exposed to mold, who have issues from mold. Mitochondrial dysfunction versus, okay, those are examples of we can go down a rabbit hole. And when I say rabbit hole, so many of the people I see who are chasing those things are not better. Versus potential causes that are a little more simple for your fatigue, underfueling, insufficient sleep, stress overload, anemia, medications, the interplay of a few of these things. And so even when, let's say someone has some adrenal issues, okay, well, why? Like, what's upstream of that? Was it stress overload? Likely. Was it consistently not getting enough sleep and burning the candles at both ends? So even when we look at what people are chasing, I still want to go upstream of that. Mold. Most of us honestly have mold in our houses. So what makes some of us more susceptible to getting really sick from it than others? Now, I know there's going to be some exceptions, like poison is poison if you have, that can be dose dependent, right? But getting upstream to be the healthiest version that we can. All right, weight gain. This is a big one. Or I'd rather say like weight loss resistance, even though I don't usually say weight loss. I like to say shed weight, but the body's not releasing weight. So potential causes, I'm going to flip this one. We're going to talk about potential causes first. Potential causes, menopause transition, 100%. The law of thermodynamics still applies, but now we've added menopause on top of it and we're not responding the same way. Muscle loss, that is a true cause for weight gain and it directly affects your metabolism. Reduced activity. We don't even realize how much. So first of all, in the menopause transition, we burn roughly 300 calories less at rest when our estrogen drops. 300 calories less. Just our resting metabolic rate. That's significant. All right. So the menopause transition and how that affects us is real. Muscle loss, reduced activity. A lot of us don't realize how much of that non-exercise activity has gone down when maybe we're not working anymore and you're in retirement. I work from home now. When I used to work in my office, I had to go up 3 flights of stairs to get to my office. And then maybe I'd forget something in my car and I'd come down 3 flights of stairs. Like I probably hit my I have to make an effort now to make sure I'm hitting my steps versus when I was working out of the house, it came more naturally. So there is a reality of reduced activity affecting our weight gain that we might believe we're doing the same. Okay. And some of you are, I know some of you are, and it's that menopause transition and these other factors, but some of us are actually moving less. And then increased calories through appetite dysregulation. They have actually measured where they have people say, they've done not measured, but there've been different studies that I've seen where people report how much they're eating and the calories they're intaking. And it is typically very incorrect. People are consuming a lot more calories than they realize. And if you're tracking, but you're not weighing and being really precise, you're actually not getting precise information. So these are simple things that absolutely can, for those of you watching me, something in my eye, absolutely can cause weight gain or make it harder to release weight. That could be simpler things to address versus what people are chasing are food sensitivities, which to me is still a downstream issue. If you're having a ton of food sensitivities, let's look at your gut. Let's look at why are you overreacting? What is going on with your system? Because if you look at the people I see, they're eating fewer and fewer foods. They're getting more and more sensitive. Oh, this gives me bloat and this causes bloat. And granted, our food supply is maybe not as quality as it used to be, but chasing these food sensitivities, it can get a little out of hand. And those food sensitivity tests are not very accurate. They're not reproducible. And so what people end up doing is going on these really strict elimination diets for indefinite amounts of time after they do this testing. All the fancy detoxes out there. Some people are just continually, let me do this 3-day juice cleanse. Let me do this detox. Let me do that detox. And so now I am a fan of cleaning out the system and decreasing that toxic burden in the body. I am, but not in these crazy ways that people are usually doing it, where they're starving themselves or they're doing these really restrictive, aggressive approaches. And then they're constantly chasing that. And then they get into this, I think I told you one doctor said, detox and then redox. And just this cycle of what is that? Just binging and restricting? Not a fan. And then really obscure hormone explanations. But we can go down a rabbit hole of these really remote, random hormone explanations and going into testing that's not necessarily validated and then worrying, like making it much more complex than it needs to be. Okay, bloating. This is a big one. I'd still include the menopause transition in this list of potential causes because our microbiome changes in menopause. Our microbiome changes after stressful periods. Our microbiome is very sensitive to what we eat, stress we're under, the sleep we're getting, what our hormones are doing. And so the causes that people chase, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to go back and forth between the chase and what the potential causes are. What people often chase are parasites, candida, and like exotic gut diagnoses. And so people often ask me, like, do you treat parasites? And I always address the gut. I always like to address the gut because I think most of us could use some gut support, but I don't go as like, to me, if there's a parasite, like overgrowth of some kind, or there's a few pieces of this. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to share. One is we go chasing after parasites. We're chasing again downstream. I think that many of us have different bacteria in our guts. We might have been exposed to some parasites, but when are they actually causing symptoms? So it's like, unless you just got back from, Mexico, swimming in a river with Giardia, or, somewhere else overseas, chasing after a bacteria, chasing after a parasite, it's not that often that somebody has like an overt infection with one of those. If they do, yes, let's address it. But when there's just this constant bloating and we're just chasing downstream, if we address the gut and create an environment where that type of dysbiosis can't live, like those that the bacteria overgrowth can't survive if our gut is in balance. And so if somebody's really, having symptoms that won't go away after we've addressed the basics, which I'm going to talk about in a moment here, then sure, we can see if there's something we've missed. We can see if there's parasites. We can see if there's some type of bacterial overgrowth. But I see that being the problem less often. And I see a lot of people who have chased, they're on a candida diet or quote unquote anti-candida diet for a year and they're not better. And it's super miserable. Like it's really, really strict, for someone to be on like a true candida diet for a year and they're not better. I've seen this over and over again. So they've got some, exotic gut diagnosis, or they've been following, the anti-candida diet, or they've been doing parasite cleanse after parasite cleanse, and they're not better. Because maybe the potential causes were their meal composition, or their eating speed, or their stress, as I mentioned earlier, or larger portions of everything that's throwing things off, or constipation. And the constipation isn't necessarily from a parasite. And sometimes like the diarrhea is not necessarily from a bacteria, from a parasite. It's from these other pieces that if we slow down, look at the meal composition, get enough sleep, address the gut in these more basic ways, these things resolve. And then, like I said, I would add the menopause transition as a potential cause because that absolutely affects bloating. So does stress, by the way. I not just in terms of like direct microbiome, which it does, but I just like, for me, my Achilles heel is my abdominal area. Like if I'm stressed, if I'm under tension, if I'm like, white knuckling it through something, I almost always get bloated or get a stomach ache. So sometimes the answer is complicated. I'm not trying. I know people are going to come out of the woodwork going, I had parasites and I found it and it solved everything. Sometimes the answer is complicated. So if you're in that exception, that's fine. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but often it is not. Often it is not. And this is why we bring people like in the work that we do back to the basics, back to the foundations. And then we go chasing some of those more obscure things that I'm mentioning if we have to, right? If someone doesn't get better with these basics, but very large percentage of people, I'm working on getting actually being able to collect data in our practice. The way we're doing surveys right now is not reporting the data in a way that I'm finding as useful as I would like it. So we're working on that. But I feel like it's like 90% of people or more, like somewhere in the 90s, that these foundations, they start feeling so much better. I'm thinking of one woman who could barely function when she came to us, and she'd seen all the doctors, done a ton of testing, tried lots of things. I think she'd also done like lots of different cleanses, parasite cleanses, and all these things. And it was really affecting her quality of life, her ability to be there with her family. This has been going on for years. We took her just through these foundational things, which I've touched on today. And like, she's getting her life back. She's being able to trust her body again and count on her body that she can get through her day and she can do what she needs to do and have energy. And it's just, it's phenomenal to me. And it's not the binder of things, of chasing, these really sophisticated explanations. Which brings me to how, in my opinion, good clinicians think differently. I send my kids to a Waldorf school because I want them to think critically. I don't want them to just regurgitate information. I want them to know how to think critically. And so clinicians think in probabilities. All right, so not like what's possible, because tons of things are possible, but what's most likely? And those are very different questions, right? So could it be mold? Sure. Could it be parasites? Maybe. Could it be a brain tumor? Technically. But what is most likely? And the most likely explanation deserves attention before the rarest explanation. So when I meet with someone initially, and I'm assessing if I think we might be a good fit, and if I think that, we can accept them as a program member, and of course, it's always a two-way street. Does somebody also want to work with us? I'm interviewing them, they're interviewing us. But I will make a note if I think that there might be mold exposure that's causing a problem. I will make a note if I think we might want to investigate parasites, but I don't start there. So there'll be something in their history and something in the way that they're describing what their history looks like. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, were they in a house with a lot of new construction? Were they in a humid area? Whatever it is. And I'll make a little note and say, like, if they don't get where we expect them to get with these more probable causes, then we will pursue these other things, right? So what is most likely? The most likely explanation deserves attention before the rarest. And a lot of people are going to these functional medicine doctors, quote unquote, and they're spending thousands and thousands on all these fancy lab tests, and they go chasing these things and they don't get better because the most probable explanation was right there and it wasn't addressed, and it wasn't addressed in a systematic way, in a strategic way, and in a way that's not, let's just throw spaghetti at the wall. Let's throw 500 different supplements at this and hope something sticks. And then when it does, if it does stick, which one was it? Right? If somebody puts you on 10 supplements at the same time and you feel a little better, do you want to be on 10 supplements for the rest of your life? So I digress a little bit, but it's even in the like natural medicine world, it drives me nuts, the disservice that we're doing to people at times. So questions to ask before you chase another solution. Okay. Question 1, and I always ask this for people. What changed before the symptoms started? Like I said, did you move into a new house? Did you just get back from overseas? Did you go through a super stressful period? Did you lose a loved one? Et cetera, et cetera. Did you change your diet? Number 2, have I addressed the obvious explanations? Like if someone has a skin reaction, are we going to just try to suppress it and say, okay, let's get this person on, a steroid cream, which is what, a dermatologist would likely do? Or are we going to say, are you using a new detergent? Have you gotten a new soap? Have you changed anything about like your household products? Start with that. What changed before the symptoms started? And so question 2, have I addressed those obvious explanations? Question 3, am I looking for certainty? Am I looking for certainty? This is a big one because many people are not seeking answers. They're seeking certainty. I want to know for sure. But health rarely offers complete certainty. I will tell people when I meet with them what I think is going on. Like, here's what I think is going on within your body physiologically. Here's what I think maybe triggered it. Here's how I think those things are potentially working together. But these aren't certainties. And I will say, look, I think that this, and this are possible causes. And if we address these, then you'll get the outcome you're looking for. But it's not necessarily one thing. It's not a simple answer like, look, here's your labs. It's your cortisol. There's your answer. Everything falls into that category. Health rarely offers that. So, next question. Am I solving the root problem? And I know this is like a buzzword with influencers out there, like the root cause. But I do believe that we want to trace back as far and as upstream or as deep as we can go. But again, root cause is a little bit of a misnomer because I don't think it's one thing. Like I just said, it could be a constellation of hormones and this and this. So are you solving the root problem or the symptom that's bothering you the most? Because I found that when we're just going after symptoms, the underlying driver of those symptoms is going to just create other symptoms. Then you're just symptom chasing or you're suppressing, and then it's expressing itself. If we just suppress a symptom, it's expressing itself somewhere else because the root cause hasn't been addressed, right? If you are constantly constipated, you might be taking something to help you with the constipation, but maybe we can get the gut working better so that you don't need to be taking something to be going to the bathroom. Another question you can ask, which might be really helpful, is what would I tell a friend in this situation? Because often we can think more clearly, we can reason more clearly for others than we can for ourselves. It's easier to see those blind spots when we step outside of ourselves than it is when we're in the problem, right? It was Einstein that said we can't solve the solution doesn't lie within the problem. And, Bob Proctor, he used to talk about to change your perception of things, you step outside of yourself. I'm going to just really shorten the example that he used to have people do. You step outside of yourself and go like, how would so-and-so look at this? So you can do that. How would somebody else look at this? Or how would I look at this if this were somebody else? Either way could work. But I think that to really get clearer, you might step outside and say, what would I tell a friend in this situation? I want to bring it in again that the real skill is not finding more information. We think we want more information. Sometimes when I give talks, I'm like, I'm going to give you as much information as possible, but trust me, you don't need more information. We are not at an information shortage in this day and time. We don't actually need more information. The women who make the most progress aren't necessarily the most informed. They're not necessarily the most disciplined or the smartest. They're often the women who learn to, one, identify the highest leverage issue. I talk about this when I give you a lot of different things you could do in these podcasts, and I say, choose one that's going to have the greatest impact. One of the things my team and I are working on is because we have little like mini goals. And this week is, what is one thing I can do that's going to improve patient outcomes even more? What is one shift I can make to serve better and improve outcomes? So what is the single highest leverage issue? All right. So again, the women who are making the most progress are identifying this, sometimes with the help of a mentor, but I know not all of you are going to work with me or with a mentor. So focus on what matters most. Stop chasing every possibility. It's like can't see the forest for the trees, right? All the trees. Stop chasing every possibility. Tolerate uncertainty. This is a big one, and this is a hard one for a lot of people. Tolerate uncertainty. There's not always a clear-cut answer. But if you're starting to feel better and you're starting to thrive, then great, you're moving in the right direction. And stay with a plan long enough to learn from it. It's like stop jumping. This didn't work. That didn't work. This didn't work. Stay with the plan long enough to learn from it. So, feel good about the plan that you're doing. Feel good about the mentors that you choose to work with. Feel good about that it makes sense to you intellectually, and then in your body, intuitively, it feels like the right path. And then stick with it and learn. So in closing, I think one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself isn't, what's wrong with me, right? In your head, am I broken? What's wrong with me? I hear this so often. A better question, a more impactful and empowering question is, am I solving the right problem? There's nothing wrong with you, right? You're not broken, but are you solving the right problem so you can feel better? Because often the breakthrough is not finding a new answer. It's asking a better question. So thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you loved this episode, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.